All right, everyone, welcome back to the Mediaverse Studios podcast. Tonight we have with us Max Leonida, and Max is a director, writer, producer, professor, just amazing filmmaker from Oskaloosa, Iowa, originally from Italy. And we're just so blessed to have him with us today, giving us his insight and letting us learn some more of his story and the projects he has coming up. How are you doing tonight, Max?
I'm doing very well, and thank you for having me, guys. This is my first podcast ever. I've done a lot of radio before, but as I told you like a few minutes ago, this is my first one. So I'm excited. I'm excited.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, right off the bat, I just want to ask, kind of, what's your story? I feel like I didn't know that you were in Iowa until just a couple of months ago when, while you were doing Winter's Harvest. So I kind of wanted to learn some of your story and maybe for the listeners, I guess, where did you come from and how did you become a filmmaker?
Absolutely. Now, the first thing that you said, it's very important because you didn't know about me up to like 2 months ago. And that's something that we, and when I say we, our department at William Penn University, my wife and I with our company, we're trying to change a little bit. Meaning that when we start working on our movie production, Winter Harvest, we had a lot of people they were looking for, and we had such a hard time finding like professionals in Iowa. There were people like that in Iowa, but they were scattered all around, and so probably creating a community which can start in Oskaloosa or in Des Moines or here, but it can spread around Iowa and it can become something like a real production hub. It would be something really nice to work on. And again, the fact that you didn't know about me, it's because in Iowa, there's not, unfortunately, a real filmmaking culture, or there's been in the past, but not anymore right now. So let's try, because I also know that you also are a filmmaker. You have a wonderful place here. I just saw your place. It's amazing. I'm very impressed.
Thank you.
So I believe that all of us, we should get together and create something that can positively affect the community, and I mean like the state, at the state level. So with that said, I was born in Italy. And I've done my high school, university things and everything, and then finally, after I have to confess, this is it feels like I'm confessing to my priest. No, it's I've been acting for a long time. That's where I started. When I went to university, in the same time, I applied for one of the three most prestigious acting school in Milan. They allowed me. They have a very like narrow selection. So from 800 candidates, they got 10 of us that year.
Wow.
And so I started acting, and I've been acting for a while. And then between 2000 and 2001, with my wife, Paola Cipollina, we created a performing arts school, our production company, and also we bought a place and we opened our theater in Milano. Again, trying to bring some, difference, try to bring some diversity, trying to bring options.
What was the film culture like in Milan?
Very interesting. Now, in Milan, there's a bigger commercial / theater culture, not so much about cinema. Cinema usually it's like Rome. It's like New York and basically Los Angeles. New York is very much about theater, musicals, and stuff like that, and commercials. And Los Angeles is all about feature films. It's the same in Italy. Rome is all about filmmaking and filmmakers and film industry. I mean, Cinecittà, where Sergio Leone and Federico Fellini and Antonioni and Visconti made their wonderful films. It's in Rome. In Milano, there used to be, and actually I have been a commercial director for TV for a long time. And also that's why I've done a lot of theater, because the theater scenario is I used to be, I don't know anymore, because I've been living in the United States for the last 15 years. I became American 3 years ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I'm a proud American right now.
Wonderful.
And so I don't know anymore if it's still like the way that I left. But the theater scene is very fervid in Milano. So yeah, and it's beautiful because it brings like a lot of, ideas, intuitions, inspirations. I believe that every filmmaker should do and and watch everything, read books, go to theater, listen to music. There's not one. If you just watch movies because you want to be a filmmaker, that's a big mistake. I think.
One of my favorite things is learning cross disciplines in any sort of creative field. Something like, what can painting teach you about cinematography? You know, what can dance teach you about pacing while you write?
Right.
Things like just finding out what connective tissue there's going to be between your media, and I love that you just said that.
And absolutely, and you're right. And people have to understand. I mean, my students, when I'm teaching at William Penn University, um, every time, even if they, for 1,000 reasons, of course, they don't know what I'm talking about in the first place, I introduce them, I expose them to a lot of different like ideas and concepts and inspirations. And the last time I was talking about lights in Caravaggio. I mean, if you want to know about filmmaking, you have to look at Caravaggio and how the lights is handled and managed in those beautiful paintings, and it tells you a lot about like filmmaking and cinematography and the use of lights and even coloring sometimes, because all the nuance and everything. I mean, so yeah, interdisciplinary, an interdisciplinary attitude is the best for any filmmaker. Yeah.
I agree. Okay, so what ended up bringing you to the United States then from Milan?
In the first place, I after I did my second feature film in Italy called Backward, a soccer drama inspired to the true life of a friend of mine, Stefano Tacconi. I went to Cannes Festival, art a contest, during the Marché du Film. And a friend of mine, Jamie Weisenborn from Sony Picture, he said, Max, you're talented and blah, 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 whatever, so why don't you come to the United States? So with the help of some people who sponsor me, and they wrote an endorsement letter, I came to the United States between 2010 and 2011, legally. And since then, I've been living from 2010 to 2020 in Los Angeles. Wow. Being a filmmaker, I had some ideas about how Hollywood was supposed to be, coming from Italy. I had a kind of a cold shower surprise, a series of surprises, but that doesn't take away the fact that I learned so much, even in my most painful moments, and I had plenty of that. But technically speaking, because there's a lot of competition, not always a fair one, of course, but you understand the dynamic of the whole business. You understand also on a technical level, because coming from Italy, I used to. This is a very simple thing. I always used to use a lot of artificial lights. Okay, sure. Artificial lights, soundstage. Los Angeles is a place where basically it's summertime. All year long, so they use a lot of like natural lights, reflecting boards. And how you use them, filters and reflecting boards, how you use them, it can change entirely the concept of cinematography when you're filming outside. That's something that I learned in Los Angeles, working there for 10 years. So long story short, in full pandemic, after I was supposed to come to Iowa to direct a feature film that I was offered, and it was a beautiful film from an Iowan producer, Tanya. The pandemic started and nothing, I mean, for a year and a half, 2 years, nobody did nothing. But I came here and I had the chance to get in touch with the president of the university, the dean, the Crockham family, John Otteson, Noel Staley, so the whole staff of William Penn University, plus some, of course, local entrepreneurs. And after a few months in which I was like really wondering and pondering, what am I going to do with my life? Because I'm a filmmaker and there's COVID. Everything shut down. And I saw a lot of desperation in some of my colleagues and some friends of mine in Los Angeles. They had nothing to do basically for months. I had a call from William Penn University, and they called me and they said, would you love to come over here and take over the former CRI, Communication Research Institute, now New Media Department, or Filmmaking and Storytelling Department, as it's going to be from the next semester. And I said, yes. And I remember that Paolo, she was very happy about that because we weren't very, very happy in a 30 million people place. Sure. There are pros and cons in everything, of course. but a smaller community with people that you really actually know, and the whole lifestyle is something that probably we were craving, we were longing for, and here I am.
How was that transition from Los Angeles to, a relatively small town in Iowa? Had you ever been there before that film?
Oh yeah, because I came for location like actually 3 weeks before March 15, so it was like
Oh, right when COVID was just about to
oh,
drop off.
absolutely. It was February 19, so nobody even talked about COVID. So I came over here in Iowa for the first time. Again, Tanya, she flew me here. She's been very nice. She, drove me around. She showed me the places and everything. So I knew the place beforehand, and I knew the town of Oskaloosa where I'm living right now. So I knew everything. It wasn't a surprise for me. It was a well pondered decision that my wife and I made, and I'm super happy about the decision. Transition wise, I was born and raised in Milano. Milano is a big European capital. Okay, we're talking about 5 million people, and then I've been living in Los Angeles, 30 million people for 10 years. After all of that, you need like to live in a place where your neighbor is like a half a mile away from you. You see deers.
Excuse me.
That's okay. You see deers in your backyard,
Yeah.
squirrels, trees, silence, crickets, as Walker said before, like silence wind. Even because, listen, if I want to have some fun, I can go to Des Moines, I can go to Chicago. There are museums and everything. But still, my headquarters, where I can actually be with myself, it has to be a place like this. At this point in my life, maybe 20 years ago, it wasn't, but right now, that's what it is.
Wow. Okay, I kind of want to shift gears now into the project that you're currently working on, Winter's Harvest. So, I guess from the beginning, tell me, where did this project come from?
The story of the kidnap and the liberation of General James Lee Dozier, it's been in my heart for a while, because when all those terrible and, thank God, happy ending events unfolded, I was 11 years old, and my dad is a journalist, and my mom is a journalist as well. So, with all my parents like working in the media, I was exposed to the story, and it became like a sensation. It became a story for the nation, like for a while, basically. The entire nation held their breath for like a month because they knew that the Red Brigades, before they kidnapped Dozier, they kidnapped the Prime Minister Aldo Moro, and he was killed. And then they kidnapped another entrepreneur, Giuseppe Tagliarcio, and he was killed. Mm-hmm. So if the same fate would happen to Dozier, who knows what could have happened to Italy, the NATO, the whole alliances and everything. It would have been like a horrible event, probably with some ripple effect, in every field of our life, basically. Right. Sorry.
And so, for those that aren't really quite aware of the story, can you give kind of a quick synopsis of what this film is covering?
Sure. Between 1969, actually starting from 1969, in Italy, there's been, in Italy started a kind of internal war conducted by two different fractions. One were hyper left and the other one hyper right. Okay. Because we had a very weak and fragile and new kind of a constitution and nation, because before 1948, when we had the referendum and we decided not to have a king in Italy anymore, we had a king. Okay. So the Italian constitution as a republic was born in 1948. You understand, it's pretty new.
Mm-hmm. And on the heels of World War II.
Absolutely, right after World War II, because we had the king until like a few years after World War II ended, basically. So you understand that the political forces that were fighting for the liberation of Italy from the Nazi and from the invaders, the two forces were the hyper-right one, probably people still longing the Nazi, sure, and the left one who were like connected to the communists and were trying basically to overturn the government. Gotcha. So basically those two forces, they couldn't quit their action after World War II. And so after the first big economic boom in the 60s with the Marshall Plan in America, basically, funding enterprises in Italy and development of, industry, those two forces, they start colliding and fighting for the power in Italy. And of course, one of the most brutalist one, I mean, both of them were horrible, but the Red Brigades, they started officially in 1969 when they put a bomb in a bank at 5 p.m., basically 2 blocks from the house where I was born in the center of Milan. Wow. My mom, she told me that she still remembered the bang like that she heard. And that was the official first act of terrorism done by the Red Brigades or somebody connected with the Red Brigades. And so throughout the entire, that was 1969, the year I was born. So throughout the entire 70s, it's been like fear all the time. Early 80s, those forces were still kind of strong, but they made a big mistake. They kidnapped Aldo Moro, the Prime Minister of Italy, and he was loved by everybody, both sides of the aisle. Okay. So when they did that, they got all the... Everybody was nervous, and they lost a lot of fans or some kind of, undecided people who thought they were doing something good for the nation. And so after that, James Dozier was kidnapped with the intention basically to strike the 3 most important powers in Italy. Political power, they killed Aldo Moro. The industry and the technological power, basically Tagliarcio, and the military power connected with NATO and James Dozier.
And James Dozier was a NATO...
he was brigadier general. He was a 2-star brigadier general supervising basically the southeastern part of Europe.
Okay.
So he was kidnapped, kept for 42 days, chained to a bunk, basically, with his wrist and his ankle. They never unchain him, and maybe for a few times just let him clean himself sometimes with a bucket, and feed him basically on a porta potty, because it was basically like he had a chemical toilet, and that was the place where they were putting the food. And he had like a light bulb always on 24/7. It's for like sleep deprivation, disorientation. So basically you try to dumbfound your victim by not letting your victim understand what time of the day is that.
Right.
So and just by chance, the police, after they've been doing a lot of investigation, they were desperate. Through a testimony who was not directly related to those events, they got the address of the place. Okay. And in 48 hours, they have to put together a team of people, knocks, and they enter the house, and they liberate the general in 50 seconds without firing one bullet.
Wow.
He was liberated in 50 seconds. There's a reason for that. They knew, and they were right, there was some explosive in the house. So they said, if we don't take him out of the house right away, there could be a chance that maybe they're going to blow the whole thing, okay? So he's been liberated in 50 seconds.
Wow.
And that's the story that I'm telling you with the movie. With all the nuances, I'm not taking sides. I want to tell the story the way it is. Sure. I want people to understand every point of view and why those events happen. Of course, my privileged point of view is the general one, because it's a friend of mine. He gave me the rights about the book. He gave me the rights about his life and the events that he went through. So I have to be respectful, with his point of view and what he suffered, what he endured. But at the same time, all the ancillary, surrounding characters, they have the same importance because they're all part of this gigantic story that moved the needle of our history in one direction rather than the other, basically. People don't realize that.
Wow. It's a fascinating story.
Thank you.
It's a very fascinating story. And I love that you're not doing both sides, but you're showing the very human aspect of these
absolutely.
people that would have taken him. I'm sure they had, reasonings that are very human reasons, and there's maybe some empathy that can be gained from it, but you're also not saying I condone these actions. It's just we're telling this story through all lenses, which is important to do.
Absolutely. I try to be honest with my art. I don't want to, again, there's a problem sometimes when you're like telling stories. You always try to promote something or quote unquote send a message. I don't send any messages. I'm a storyteller. I want you to cry, laugh, feel what I'm talking about, and that's it. That's my job. My job ends there. When you feel something with my movie or my art, That's my job, and I'm done. Then it's up to you to develop your own ideas, understand if you're rooting for one side or the other. What I can tell is that basically those people were young people. They were like people in their 20s, mid-20s, full of ideas, wrong ideas.
This started when they were children.
Absolutely. So who knows where they were coming from, what kind of events or what happened in their life to let them, go the direction that they went, like killing people to supposedly restore democracy or some kind of more democratic, environment in a nation. Who knows where those ideals were taken from? But again, there were people in their 20s, and when you're very young, you make a lot of mistakes. You follow the wrong leader. You think that you can change the world sometimes with your anger, rebel without a cause, of course. So again, without condoning anything on both sides, but we have to realize that Dozier was 50 years old, and those people, he was stronger than any of them, and that's why he survived. He was a NATO general. He's been in Vietnam. He was a soldier. He was trained to endure, suffering, duress, stress, torture. He was ready for that, basically. He said he screwed up a lot of times. That's what he told me. Yeah. I don't think so. And again, those people were like people in their 20s. So when I asked Dozier, how you feel about the fact that all of them now they're like free. Some of them, they have a totally new life. One is a pediatrician, another one, she writes like book for children. Wow. So yeah, absolutely. They have a new life right now. And he told me, Max, it was a war, and now I don't feel anything anymore. There was a war. We were fighting on different sides.
Wow.
That's it. I couldn't say it better.
Wow. That's amazing. So I was in the Air Force, and I went through that resistance training. And so they do, like, the way that they trained him was the way they trained us, and it's intense, and it's very, I could see the duress that he was put in. And I read his story, and I'm like, that tracks so much with the way that they trained us. Like, they used his story. I remember learning about him in our training, and they used specifically Dozier's story to explain, like, hey, if you're a political prisoner or in a non-wartime, not a POW, but you're a prisoner all the same, almost like a hostage. There's different ways you have to like interact with your captors, and there's different ways that you have to like try to survive and try to get care for yourself. I just love reading his story because it was very much just like affirming of the training that I received, and I could just really sympathize. And I'm just so excited to see this movie, how you portrayed his struggle through the living in that tent and being chained up and having the conditions.
You have an official invitation to the premiere, of course.
Oh my God. Thank you.
All of you.
Okay, so I guess now I want to ask kind of about the production of this film. I know that you kind of started in Iowa, in Oskaloosa for a good time, and now you're about to head off to Italy to finish this production. So why did you decide to start in Iowa, and then why go to Italy, and then kind of how did you get this movie made?
Okay, in the first place, I have to say that this movie was born out of a bigger plan, a bigger scenario that I had in my heart, in my mind, since the first moment I arrived in Iowa. Meaning, when I came here for the first time, working with William Penn University, I told them, you have to realize that I'm a filmmaker. I love teaching, and I love, dealing with my students. It's a mutual kind of exchanging of forces and knowledge. They're learning from me, hopefully, but I'm learning from them. So it's an osmosis, basically. That's the chemical process. So when I came here for the first time, I said my wife and I were filmmakers. So I believe that there's no way like making a feature film that's going to attract people and show people that we can do this in Iowa, in rural Iowa. When I started working on this movie in the first place, I called a friend of mine. He's a producer. I won't say his name, but he's a producer. And he used to be a friend of mine. I thought he was a nice guy. So I talked to him and I said, listen, I'm working on the story. He was excited. Oh my, Max, I love the story. That's great. So it's going to be an action movie. Yeah, action, but also drama. Let's not make this the kind of stereotypical, like a Hollywood, it's not about that. It's about a true story. We're talking about lives, okay? So it's a drama slash action, military, but let's keep it in mind. And where are you going to make the movie? In Iowa. Silence. Still there?
Crickets.
Yeah, crickets. And I was like, you sure? And I was like, yeah, of course. That's my plan. I wanna have my students working with me. William Penn University involved in the movie. All the local, authorities involved in the whole process, and we can make something happen in a state where usually it's not common that things like that happen. Another silent moment, uncomfortable silence, and he said, Max, you got to realize that nobody will come to Iowa to make your movie. And I was like, why is that? Because there's nothing there, and Iowa is in his word is in the middle of friggin' nowhere. And I was like, okay, listen, thank you very much. I thought you were a friend of mine. Fine. No matter what, listen, you don't underestimate the thing that I'm a triple Scorpio. Scorpio, rising sun Scorpio with 3 planets in Scorpio. Whatever I put in my mind, I'm gonna make it.
Wow. That's
Listen.
crazy. I'm a triple Gemini, so it's like
I knew you were Gemini. The moment I shook your hand, I knew it. Why didn't I tell you that? I knew you were Gemini. So again, I'm a very determined kind of person, and thank God I have this wonderful woman next to me, because of course I can be as determined and focused as I want, but you need somebody on your side, somebody who's living your same passion, your same life. And Paul and I were like a unity, and so this is something that gave me the force and the strength in moments in which I was like weak or second guessing myself many times. So again, the words of this quote unquote friend of mine, producer, just gave me more strength and more will to move forward with the project. So I went to William Penn University and the president and the dean, and I said I want to do this, and they were like, okay with that. So we started developing the script. I met the general. We became friends. We developed the whole story. We found some local sponsors, and we put together a budget, which is a very modest and conservative one, but that's the only way you can do the first movie. Sure. And now it's really interesting because we have the attraction of many people, even from out of state, who are like, oh, looking at us as like, okay, that's interesting. On top of that, 40% of my staff on the set were my students, former students.
That's amazing.
And some of my students are coming with me to Italy for filming. How cool is that? Now name one university that has ever done anything like that for their students.
Never heard of that.
Never.
I read that in the article, and I was just blown away. What an opportunity that would be.
Me neither.
Holy moly.
Me neither. I've been in Los Angeles for years. There's so many film schools in Los Angeles, respectable ones, good ones, but nobody has ever done anything like this before. So we're trying to get the whole project. And of course, I want to highlight that this is a SAG project. You know what it means, SAG? Yeah. Screen Actors Guild. With all due respect, so many people, they're making of course, short films or independent movies. And of course, because you don't have the budget, you don't have the resources, you can go SAG. Yeah. Because our 3, 4, 5 actually main actors, they're all coming from Los Angeles and they're SAG actors, a Screen Actors Guild. We have to be SAG signatory. Now that takes months of your life, right. Paperwork, bureaucracy. But once you do that, you understand that you're playing, it's, again, with all due respect, rather than playing like minor leagues or like local teams, now you're jumping to the Super Bowl, because this is the league where you're playing with. These are the people and the protagonists and the people you're dealing with your production. So, again, bringing a SAG movie where students can work on in the middle of Midwest, I don't think it's something that it's easy to be done.
No, I can't imagine being any sort of student and then immediately being thrown into a SAG project. That is huge. What an amazing opportunity that would be. Wow. So I want to, because one of our own crew members here at Mediaverse was involved with the project as well. So Walker is actually running our switcher right now, and I just wanted to kind of give a quick shout out to her and introduce her. Walker's our kind of our main makeup artist, hair and makeup artist here on set. She also does some acting, and she's obviously running the podcast now. But your lovely wife Paola, she reached out to Walker and got her onto set at Winter's Harvest, and spent an amazing week with you guys. And we're just very grateful that she was able to make this connection with us. And yeah, we love her, and we love that she brought you here.
She's been wonderful on the set. I mean, people don't realize that everybody brings the set is a big kind of is a huge family. Of course, the director is the father or the mother, or anyway, you're the captain of the ship, of course. So if you lose control, everybody feels entitled to lose their control. If you're yelling or you're rude, everybody feels, and you're the director, everybody feels entitled to do so. So I try to keep a very clear, not just polite, a very clear, loving and caring energy on my set, because that's the only fertile environment where I believe that ideas can be generated. The work is already hard in itself. Reaching that particular level of emotion, dealing with with a lot of things that can go wrong on the set. So our life on set is already hard without being rude, without being, stupid and selfish. So everybody brings their energy, and I try to understand what kind of energy everybody's bringing. The moment I saw Walker coming on the set, immediately I saw the energy, and it was a good one. And you feel the people who belong with your family, and you feel people who don't belong with your family. Maybe they belong to some other kind of set. So on my set, no gossip, no backstabbing. If you have any issue, whatever, you come to me. You don't talk around people, whatever. That's how it works. And you're nice with everybody, and you try to understand everybody's work. And that's exactly what she brought on the set in terms of energy, and I love it.
Yeah, she's great vibes. We love her too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about casting for this film. I know that there was some kind of like larger, named actors attached to this project, and I'm curious how you managed that. Having the, I guess, smaller budget, smaller set, even though you're still SAG, and how did you kind of gain the interest in the commitment from these larger names that are attached to this project?
Well, like many things in life, of course, it happens because you know those people and they know you. It's a matter of trust. It's very rare that you don't know somebody, and I mean, I'm not denying it can happen, but this is a very Hollywood kind of myth that you get something in your hands, you go to the actor, you meet the actor for the first time, and they're like shocked. And they have a revelation. There's a cone of light over their head, and they understand your script is the best script in the world war.
Right.
I honestly, in my 10 years in Los Angeles, I never saw that happening to anybody that I know, and I knew a lot of people there. Now, with that said, if you know somebody and you've been working with them, in the past, and there's a mutual trust, mutual respect, mutual love, and that's what happened with Chris Payne Gilbert and me. I knew him from another movie that we've been working together called Beauty and the Broken. So when I started working on the Dozier story, I remember that one night I asked Dozier, Jim, who would you see, who would you like to play you as a character in the movie? And he said, I don't want to have any super big, hyper expensive star. I want to have a good actor with a recognizable name and face, of course, possibly, and a good actor, somebody who can really portray the story with a faithful, attitude, and also possibly somebody who can look like me, remind me, some kind of resemblance. And I remember that Paul and I will look each other in the eyes and we're like, that's Chris Gilbert. That's him. We saw the picture. We put together the black and white pictures of Chris and Jim Dozier, and they were like so much alike. So I called Chris in the first place, and I started talking about the story. And that was like 2.5 years ago. And he was so excited. So the next time I went to Florida to meet General Dozier, I did a video call with Chris, and Chris and the general, they were talking together. And the general was like, you're more handsome than me. No, Jim, come on, come on. You were a good-looking man when you were like a general in your 50s, and from that, through Chris, he's been so kind and gracious that he brought aboard a lot of other actors, including his wife, Leslie and Bran. You can remember her from Lucifer. She's playing Mazikeen. She's doing The Walking Dead right now. I mean, she's an A-list actress. And so through him, we found her, and then we found all the other actors. And that's how we got the cast that we have right now. Of course, when you start like reaching those level of people, again, you have to be sex signatory. You can make if they do an independent movie which is not sex signatory, they can be kicked out of the union right away.
Right.
So
Very strict about that.
yeah, so absolutely we have to. It reshapes and it's rerouting everything. So we started with some ideas. We slightly changed the budget. And again, Chris was so understanding and so kind that he understood the issue. And so he agreed about the wage and everything, which I understand it's not the usual Hollywood kind of wage, but we just can't afford it right now. Maybe the next movie or the one after, we will be so strong here as a community. And talking about community, I can tell you that in June I did a commercial for Mahaska Conservation.
I was gonna ask about that.
And everybody who worked on that commercial with us, they helped us when we were filming the movie. That's what a community could bring for no money. I mean, in Los Angeles, you pay for the air that you breathe on the boardwalk of Venice Boulevard. You pay for everything. Every single thing has a price, has a label, has a tag on
I heard
it.
a story of a film that was being shot in a residential area, and there was the neighbor was mowing his lawn, and they went over and asked, "Hey, would you mind not mowing your lawn while we're filming?" And he said, "Yeah, $400, and I'll shut my lawnmower off."
Oh,
Just that bizarre level of thinking. where
not unusual.
is
I was filming on the boardwalk when I did Beauty in the Broken, and I remember everything was quiet. We started filming it was like 7:30, 8 a.m. And usually the shop they open like in Venice Boulevard, in Venice Beach they open like around like 9:30, 10 a.m. whatever. So it was closed. Like they were just opening and putting stuff out and everything. And I remember when they saw us filming, all of a sudden they like loud music.
Yep.
And thank God the owner, he was Italian. So I entered the shop and I play my Italian card and I bought something that I didn't need actually. I didn't need anything of that. But I bought something. He was happy. We're paisano. And I was like, can you stop the music for like an hour and a half? How about 50 minutes? That's okay. So we shook hands and he started the music for 50 minutes so we could film. Again, that's Los Angeles. Right. Here in Iowa, you got the whole entire community helping you, other professors, colleagues, again, everybody. And that's why we did the Mahaska Conservation commercial, basically. If you go to an agency, that would be like a very expensive kind of commercial, but we did everything kind of pro bono. I'm telling you why, because the community deserved that.
Wow.
Yep.
I love that. Yeah. And we've had the same experience here. Anytime that we're out filming, even just everyone in the general public is just so excited to see something being created, and they're just willing to lend a hand or, be an extra or just lend their space or give tools or whatever you need. It's just such a wonderful collaborative community here. And that's why I love making movies here in Iowa. I couldn't imagine doing it anywhere else, honestly. No. It sounds like a huge nightmare.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you have also a very wonderful like Italian cast as well coming in as part of the. I'm trying to say I guess the Red Brigades were all Italian, obviously. You had Daniele, as I recall, just meeting him, and Nicolo, just being fantastic actors from what I saw from what Walker shared with me. How is that managing kind of like two different cultures of cast?
Well, maybe I'm coming from a kind of privileged point of view because being Italian American, now being American, but being born in Italy, I can handle pretty well like all the cultural differences. I know what it means to be American, and I know what it means to work with American actors, and I know what it means to be Italian, and I know what it means to work with Italian actors.
You're kind of the perfect director for that.
I believe so. Again, I don't want to sound like silly part of myself, but that's something that honestly, I've been managing pretty easily. Actually, it was very exciting, and I saw that this kind of strange connections and merging between two cultures. It was just enhancing and exciting everybody's performance. The American actors, they were excited to work with Italian actors. And just the exotic feeling of listening to another language, they were just so kind of inspired to give their best. And the same thing for the Italian actors. We're dealing with A-list American actors. We have to come with our best game, basically. So I thought I think it's a winning, and also the word is expanding. I mean, we were talking about Parasite, an independent Korean movie. Alfonso Cuarón, who won the Oscar 2 years before. I mean, Inarritu. I mean, we're talking about the movie making. I don't know if you ever seen the TV series Money Heist, which is called Casa del Papel. It's a Spanish TV series. Wonderful, incredibly beautiful, well written, well acted, well filmed, well shot, and everything. So I believe that now, if you're smart, if you understand that the word is not just one place, it's every place, you understand that by putting together people from different countries, it's only helping the purpose of serving a better story. That's what I believe. And I believe in diversity. So,
Yeah, I love that. Can you talk a little bit about directing a story that is an existing story? Like you're telling it through the eyes of Dozier. And I'm sure he had, obviously his version of the story. You're trying to get the other version of the story as well, and kind of blending those. And it's a real story, and you're trying to be honest and true to the actual events, but also make it a compelling movie. And so how do you kind of manage a based on real events kind of film?
first of all, of course, because it's his story, we had an agreement where he would supervise every version of the script that we would write. Wow. And he and his attorney and his manager would let us know if they were okay with the version that we came up with. Okay. Now, after the fifth revision of the script, Dozier said, "This is the story. This is what I feel. It's my story." And so we went with that, of course. But he's been very kind, honestly, and he wasn't pestering us with all like little things and here and there. Actually, we came up with a few artistic licenses, little changes, and he agreed with that because he's a very smart. I mean, he's 94 and he's like sharp as a blade. And so he fully and totally understood that sometimes when you're telling a story, you can't just be doing chronicles. You can't just be telling events after events.
It's not a documentary. This is
absolutely otherwise it's going to be a docuseries or a documentary. It's based on true events, but it's still a fictional story. Mm-hmm. It's a movie. So he allowed us to get some freedom of choice by creating characters or changing a little bit the dynamic of some events in order to basically making the story more powerful and more emotional, basically. But again, he's been reading all the version of the movie that we wrote before the fifth one, and until he told us, I'm okay with that, we've been changing things because that's what you do when you're dealing with a true story.
Wow. So can I ask kind of why make it now? I think that not to take it to a political place, but it seemed like there's a climate that's similar here in the States that there may have been back in around that time in Italy. Was that kind of any influence on why you decided to make it now, or was it another reason? Timing with you got the story from Dozier and you felt it was the right time. Kind of what was the decision making process behind like why Winter's Harvest versus other projects I'm sure you have in your mind?
That's a good question because, as a matter of fact, the idea came up to my mind without the current political climate being already like out there. Mm-hmm. And when I said it, I mean that I've been thinking of this movie, and I started working on this movie. Somehow I was sensing that the world was going towards a strange direction, which is the one that actually we're are already into right now. I have the feeling that this particular story, can speak to a lot of people. You know why? Again, I don't like to send messages because that's not the purpose of a work of art. A work of art is just art. You look at that, it inspires you, it gives you emotions, and that's it. So I'm not trying to send messages, but if you want to find some kind of moral ground or something that can somehow speak to the people right now, I would say that probably my movie is about how violence is never, ever the way. From both sides, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, if you think, even with the best intention in the whole world, if you think you can change the world with violence, violence begets violence, and that's the truth. So I believe that now more than ever, this movie in this particular political climate would, I mean, I don't know, where's the war where people, even political candidates, were not just insulting each other all the time, yelling at each other all the time. What's this all about? I don't understand. I don't recognize anything anymore. Is it a part of a, should we like blame the social media? Probably, I don't know, or probably not. Maybe everything was already there, like beneath the surface, like just brewing, and all the rotten things just exploded because of the social media. Maybe that's a possibility. I'm not a social study major. I'm not a psychologist. I can't give an answer about that. I'm an artist. I'm a storyteller, or I fancy myself as that, of course. But what I can tell is that telling the story right now, I really hope that people can understand how violence is never the answer. The moment you let violence in your mind, in your brain, in your heart, and you let it out, you lost already. That's what I think. And if people can get something out of my movie, maybe that's it.
I love that.
Thank you.
A lot. What's next for Winter's Harvest? I know you're still in production. I know you're heading off to Italy soon.
Yes, I will go to Italy for like 4 weeks in a row filming of the rest of Winter Harvest. Then that will be from November 8th to December 8th, so like a straight month. Then I will be back here to celebrate Christmas and recoup my energy because I'm not 20 anymore, even if I feel like I'm 19. But my body, which thank God is still working, but it reminds me every once in a while, my body reminds me that I'm not 20 anymore. So we'll get back here. We will celebrate Christmas with our friends and our daughter and our family and our friends here in Oskaloosa. Then January, I will have my editor coming over here and working on the editing of the movie. And I will have my new semester starting at William Penn University. And right in between the end of the next semester and the beginning of summer, I will go to Italy. And so that's the next project. Oh. It's called Ape Regina. It's a kind of mafia story, okay. But instead of a godfather, we have a godmother, basically. So it's a woman running this kind of empire. And I don't want to reveal anything right now. It's going to be pretty interesting. And even in that case, we will film some part in Italy and some part in the United States. So that's going to be the next one.
I can't wait to see that. What are some of your filmmaker influences? You came up from Italy over to Los Angeles. You obviously have learned a lot of the industry and a lot of the artistry of it, but I guess where does your kind of inspiration come from?
Of course, being Italian, I mean, I love Fellini, Antonioni, De Sica, Pasolini, the genius of Visconti, all the best Italian directors, and of course, all the best European directors. So Ingmar Bergman, Truffaut. But every time I start my classes, every semester, there's always one student who asks me, Max, how did you realize you were willing to be a filmmaker? When that idea came, like when you realized that we're willing to do this as a job, okay? And I can really, with my finger point a moment in my life. And I can tell you I was 17 years old. And I watched, because the movie was like R-rated or some reason, whatever. So when the movie came out in the first place, it was 1981. I was 11 years old, so I couldn't see the movie in theater. That movie was called The Elephant Man by David Lynch,
Yes.
a black and white masterpiece. I remember, so I couldn't see the movie when I was 11.
Right.
And then the movie ran on TV, and I was 17 years old. And I remember I've been crying from the first frame to the last one. I was sobbing all the time. Those, like the story, the characters, everything was pure perfection, pure beauty. That wonderful, like silver, black and white nuance, and the poetry and the symbolism of the whole movie. And David Lynch, he's a damn genius, of course. So when I saw the movie, after I watched the movie, I told myself, you know what? Whatever I'm gonna do in my life, no matter what, I want to do that. I want to create whatever that movie created in me for an hour and a half. I want to do the same thing. So, of course, I love Kubrick. Spielberg, he's a genius. I mean, I love even commercial directors, okay? I love Christopher Nolan. I love David Fincher. Sure. Even more modern ones, Spike Lee, Jordan Peele. I mean, I love modern and classic cinematography. So all of them, I mean, Coppola, Kubrick, they stand in the Olympus of director. But if I have to say a director who I feel a connection with, it's going to be David Lynch. And it's really interesting because the producer of The Elephant Man, his name is Jonathan Sanger. He's the producer. And wonder who's the first person that I met when I came to Los Angeles, and he became one of my sponsors in 2006. Jonathan Sanger. I met him when I was in Los Angeles in 2006. And in 2010 or 11, he wrote an endorsement letter for me to come legally in the United States. So I became friend with the producer of The Elephant Man after many years. So there has to be some kind of serendipity or happenstance and whatever. Yeah. So that's my inspiration.
I love that.
Thank you.
Very much. So we're kind of coming to the close of the podcast. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you want to get across to any audience? I know that we haven't talked much about, the industry or, filmmaking in Iowa, but and I know there's probably future conversations to be had. But what kind of do you want to people to know about you?
I don't think I don't believe I'm such an interesting kind of subject myself. Really, I'm not joking, and I'm always kind of embarrassed when people ask me like about me or what I can tell is this. First, I hope this is not going to be the last podcast that I'm gonna do with you guys. Hopefully, there's going to be many more in the future. And anytime you're going to call me and you're so kind to have me here, I will be here. The second thing I want to tell you, it regards you more than me, because I just saw your place here. And it's impressive. No, really, I'm not joking. I'm not flattering you. It's impressive because I've seen so many things done just because people were interested in money, just that. So maybe that's something also that speaks about me and it speaks about you. I don't do this job because of the money. Of course, we need money. And even if I believe that money is a kind of a social hallucination, because I still have to understand why that piece of paper is $1. So that's something like it's a mystery to me. Anyway, with that saying, what you're doing here is driven by passion and the will force and the willpower of storytelling. And that's what I admire in people. So what I can say is this. Sorry. I wish, if you want me to say something about me, but also about what I'm doing here, what we can do as a community. Yeah, my dream is to create something here in Iowa that can basically bring together people like you and me and all of you guys. And why not? Creating some stories, remarkable stories that people can appreciate. Not just because we're making millions of dollars with that. Maybe we will, and everybody's going to be happy, of course. But because we feel that we have to tell the story in the whole world. Never ever forget how the entire thing started. It started 1,000 years ago when one man was sitting in the middle of a circle of fire. There was a fire and people sitting around, and this shaman or storyteller or person was casting shadows on the rocks. And as I always say to my students, when life was unbearable. We had to fight for everything, for food, survival, fighting all the hostile environment around us. Life was not easy. Even in those moments, they were carving stones, making paintings and telling stories. That should tell you how important is our job.
Primal.
Absolutely. When people were not even able to survive more than 25 or 30 years of age, we still had the craving of telling stories. So when I see that same kind of spark, that same kind of primeval energy in the people around me, like I've seen here, you show me around and you show me your place, well, maybe that could be the beginning of a community. So you're living here, live in Oskaloosa, some other people live in Des Moines. So why don't we bring together all of this and we create something that we can work with? So I want to leave you with this.
I love that so much. Walker, do you have anything for us?
I just want to say that working on the set of Winter Harvest was one of the most incredible weeks of my life. The crew and the cast were amazing to work with. The hairstylist, Rick Newcomb, took me under his wing, and he was incredible. And when I first got on set, Max, you gave me a little tour of the set that you'd built and gave me kind of a rundown of the movie. And I felt part of it, part of the project, part of the family. It took me a little while to understand everyone, but it was beautiful. And I've dreamed of going to Italy my whole life. And just getting to be immersed a little bit in the culture just gave me a new spark to make sure that I make that happen for myself. And I will forever remember that week.
Thank you. Now you left me speechless, which is like a lot because
Here we are.
I'm a talker, but you left me speechless right now. Listen, who knows? Maybe the next movie you will come, maybe Upper Regina. You will have the chance to come to Italy. Who knows? I'm just saying. Listen, I'm throwing things in the universe, okay?
Manifest.
Let's manifest. Brava. Right.
Wonderful. Paola, anything you would like to say?
Okay, I like to make the things happen, so this is my job.
Yeah.
I'm not a good talker because I'm a practical person, so I handle number, budget. This is my job as a producer. So.
Paola's
Sounds beautiful
the
when you
magician
talk,
that makes all of this wonderful wizardry happen that you create on screen. You can tell.
Yeah, Pausa. I mean, it's amazing, and she has this nature. She can help herself. Everybody who has a dream or something that they want to achieve, she makes that thing happen in some ways.
I love that.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel lucky every day of my life when I wake up in the morning and I see that. Really, I feel very lucky. I feel blessed.
Well, thank you very much for your time, Max.
Thank
I
you
really
for having
appreciate it.
me
This
here.
won't be the last time that we have a podcast, I assure you. But good luck with the rest of production on
you.
Winter's Harvest and all of the future projects. I'm sure
Thank
we'll
you.
be in contact.
It's been wonderful. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all for watching and listening, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye, everybody.